All right. Time for therapy. Hello, folks. So this is a very frustrating and discouraging and any other superlative you want to use to describe this day is probably apropos. So in case you haven't heard, and if you're here, you've probably heard this, there was some news today that a certain player that we all love, who I think is currently the face of the franchise, has requested a trade. And this is a very frustrating day. So Ian Rappaport tweeted out, as many others did, that Arizona Cardinals star safety Budda Baker has requested a trade. There were some tweets from Budda pertaining to this, and then the tweets started coming in supporting that. There have been reports now. Darren Urban posted an article about it, so it's about as official as it gets. And Budda Baker tweeted out, "Love you, Cardinals fans," and obviously there's been a huge, show of support for Budda from the fan base. I think most fans, not all, but most probably feel the way I do in terms of we're on Team Budda with this one. I tweeted out, or I replied to his tweet, that the organization is slipped on this one, for lack of a better term. Some people don't feel that way, but I definitely think this is a misstep, and we'll talk about that tonight. So, as always, it's when there's stuff like this going on, we have our group therapy session. I think a lot of times, I think my role within this community is to try to talk people down from the ledge, help us feel like it's all going to be all right. And this one hurts. So I might not be as optimistic as you're used to. I still see a future where they can win at some point, but this is, I don't see this as the right move. I don't see this as a good thing. This is an L for the organization right now. It's a bad look. We'll get into that. So let me say hey to some of the folks in chat. We'll get some of your comments and we'll talk through this, what this means, what we think's going on, and be here together with one another. Hayden Esk saying, "Kill me." No, let's not do that. But I know that I feel dead inside right now, right? Thunder saying, "I don't think Monty or Gannon caused this. Budda wants to be the highest paid safety to stay. Do they really pay it? What team wants to trade for him and give him that?" Yeah, I will say, like there's been some question. Is some people saying is Monty just another Keim? Is this just more of Keim stuff going on? And it's hard to know how much of this was on Monty and how much of this, is this is not offering Budda the extension that he's asking for on Monty? Was that his decision? Is that him saying, "Listen, MB, Michael, I know y'all love him, but from a roster building perspective, paying a safety and a long extension that's going to start when he's 29 and go into his 30s doesn't make sense," or whatever he might have said. Was that Monty's position? Or was this Michael Bidwell saying, "No, I don't want to, let's wait," right? And I suspect what probably happened is they wanted him to play out the contract and maybe see about extending him later but I don't know how much of this is Monty, how much of this is Bidwell. I don't suspect it's Gannon. I think Gannon wants Budda on that team. I have to imagine with what he does, if you're a coach, you want good players like that and what he means in the locker room. So I would have to imagine I think it's mostly Michael Bidwell. It might be Monty Austin-Fort. I don't know. One of the reports were that he requested the trade back in February. So, they had some time to kind of talk about it and nothing's happened. So yeah, maybe we'll hear more reports as time goes on, what happens. So, how much of this is Monty and how much is Bidwell? I don't know. I don't think it's Gannon. But we may or may not find out. We may never know. Right. Brett Jones saying, "I see the situation both ways, but if I'm Budda or his agent, I'm saying let's see what happens after next season. Budda could be all pro next season because the defense is going to get its reps. I mean, I could see that. Here's the tricky thing. I think Budda has already established his value. People know how good he is. I don't, yeah, if he had an even better season, maybe that ups it, but like, I don't think there's any question around the league of what kind of player Budda Baker is. And I think there are teams that would pay him that right now. I do think if they're balking on paying that money, it's because they're looking at it. He's going to be 29 when the contract ends, and do you want to pay a safety that much money into the 30s? And if this is just like a neutral in a vacuum, kind of situation where you have a safety who is not, kind of the person Budda is, and you're asking, do you pay a safety with, that money? Do you extend him at that point? I could see the argument for not extending player X with his traits, even as good as he is, but there's something different here. People have talked about this, retweeted on Twitter all the quotes from Monty Ossenfort that Budda represents everything this organization wants. I tweeted out that Budda Baker is an exemplar of what they are trying to install culture-wise. Everything they're saying they want to be, Budda's that. And I think he's one of those players that can be described as a force multiplier, meaning he does things that makes other players better, that he's greater than, like, his impact is greater than just what he does. Both in terms of the practice, like what in practice, the way he practices in the meeting rooms, the way he works, the way he plays in the field, the way he plays through injuries, everything about him. Like you've seen the quotes, like if you watched Hard Knocks, you saw in the meeting room. So like repeatedly, it's like, the coaches pointed to Budda and say, are you working as hard as Budda? Are you doing what, are you giving it all like Budda does? Like all of that stuff, like his play is exceptional. But all the things that he brings, I just, even if it's overpaying, I think you overpay him, like quote unquote overpaying. Like every team overpays someone. Most teams overpay a couple players. So if you're going to overpay someone a little bit, let's overpay someone who brings everything he brings, that brings what he brings to the locker room, that becomes, the heart and soul of this defense. Overpay him. If it's technically overpaid, or if you think from an analytics perspective and, positional value, it's overpaying, cool. Let's overpay Budda Baker, right? Because what he's going to bring is going to be worth it. So that's my position. That, look at like Larry Fitzgerald. I love Larry Fitzgerald, right? Obviously all-time great. But last couple seasons of his career, from a production standpoint, and some of that was maybe the offense, but he was overpaid, right? He was making more than his production would have justified, but it was worth it because of what he means to leadership, what he means to organization. So, for me, you keep him, right? So that's kind of how I view it. So, well, let's get to some of the other comments. Air Noob saying this hurts so much. I feel that 100%. Cruz Espero, Budda gone, Sons and Foe. Listen, with what's going on with the Cardinals, man, the Suns, we're putting our hopes on them to give us something to root for, right? For Arizona fans. Easy Money Typer says free Budda, right? Yeah. I saw that disastrous 38. I probably butchered that. I apologize. The petition. I saw a petition to to raise money for Budda. I think I'm thinking the same one, right? So, yeah. Aaron Noob saying, how do you stay optimistic during all this? We'll get to that. I don't know how optimistic I am, right? Yeah, it's hard to stay optimistic right now. Easy Money Typer saying, is this rock bottom for this franchise? I mean, I tweeted out that I thought 2018 was rock bottom, right? And here we are, right? But yeah, a la carte, at least the Suns to look forward to on Sunday, right? Playoffs. Tony Heights here with us. Thank you for being here. So grateful for you in times like this, Joe. We all need this tonight. My forever positive and optimistic fandom was put through the absolute emotional ringer today. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you and your encouragement. I will get to the case for hope, such as it is in terms of the long term for the team. it's going to be subdued, but I mean, we'll get to that, but there's a lot of things to be critical about too, and be with this whole situation. Dakota Bedard, thanks for being here. Budda 2.0 Honey Badger. I mean, it feels a lot like that situation, with the exception of, like, okay, if you remember, Tyrann Mathieu had the extension, except I think they had asked him to take a pay cut, and he had been come off some injuries and such. But it did, it does feel similar, like this great safety that, and things go sour and sideways. Budda isn't coming off like the kind of injury that Honey Badger was, and they didn't ask him to take a pay cut as far as know. He just wanted an extension, they wouldn't get it, but it does still feel kind of similar, right? Crew is saying enough is enough. Honestly, there must be time where we boycott the organization. I'm sick of this ownership. I mean, you're going to see it. I don't know about you're going to see boycotts, but you're going to see ticket sales down. And that's, that sends a message for sure, right? JP, thanks for being here. We can see how much this defense sucks with Budda gone, right? Yeah, I mean, some whatever on Twitter, like, was like a couple of folks when I tweeted out were like, oh, Budda sucks. He's whatever. And he's not made anyone, like, people who just don't know what the hell they're talking about. And like Budda, like, does so much for the defense. If you watch the interview I did with Eric Eager a while back, a couple weeks back, Eric Eager, if you don't know him, he used to be with PFF. He was their head of analytics. He's now with Sumer Sports, and he was kind enough to do an interview with me, and we talked about a lot of things related to the Cardinals. And he was talking about Budda Baker, and he sort of has this sort of, I think he calls it his fall guy theory about PFF grades. And this is the guy who, like, used to be in charge of how they do their grades, so he knows what he's talking about. And one of the things he talked about is, PFF grades, they're useful, but they're not perfect. And one of the things with them is, sometimes in defenses, if you have a really good player, the defense does things that sort of funnel, stress, for lack of a better term, like the stress or the onto that player, meaning like where the stress points in the defense are, where the offense, can kind of hit, right? They do things to sort of funnel things towards their better players who can handle it. They get the tougher matchups, they get tougher situations like that. They get put in situations where maybe they have to cover more space, whatever it is. And sometimes the best players on defense get put in those situations because the defense can lean on them to do that, to help cover deficiencies with other players. And those players, those great players, their PFF grades kind of get suppressed a little bit, because their grades are down a little bit because they've been asked to do something much more difficult, and they still do it reasonably well. But if they were asked to do what a typical player is, they might be graded much higher, right? With normal sort of responsibilities. And he mentioned that Budda Baker is kind of one of those guys. So, like, anyone who doesn't think Budda Baker is good, anyone who just looks at his PFF grades and say, oh, they're in the 60s and 70s, he's just so, you don't understand data. Like, data has to be taken within context. It doesn't mean those grades are useless, but you always have to look at what the context is. And the context with that, at least as Eric Eager has argued, has to do with certain players who are elite get put in these situations where they do more. They carry a lot for the defense, and their grades are just down a little bit because of that, but they're still elite players, right? I mean, think about this. Like, last couple of years going into the season, our cornerbacks have been a major area of concern, right? And it is now as well, right? They're going to have to address it in the draft. And for the last two seasons, going into the season, it's like, man, we really, Patrick Peterson's gone. We have Byron Murphy, rookie Marco Wilson, like this, is that really going to be able to be good enough? And our defense still struggled, but like, I watched it carefully. And if you watch the games carefully and you look at the stats carefully, like, the cornerbacks weren't great. The secondary struggled some, but it wasn't like the kind of train wreck we thought it would be. And part of that is because Budda and Jalen help cover some of those deficiencies, right? And help kind of them to play better. So, like, someone who doesn't understand what the hell they're talking about might think Budda is overrated. Anyone who, like, you talk to anyone who understands football, and you talk to people like who cover the league, like, who know much more than I do, they all get it. Right. It's anyone who doesn't think Budda is trying to be a troll, or they're just a clown. Right. And so, like, Budda is valuable. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you don't let him go, right? So yeah, at least I don't think you do. I think you keep him. All right, so let's see. MKT Bongo, do you think Budda will sit out because of this? I don't think so. I don't think so, but I do think he might do, like, lately in recent years, what's gone on around the league is they have sort of the players hold in, right? They go to training camp, but they really don't do anything. I could see that happening. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the kind of person to do that. But if he did, I wouldn't fault him. I'm not going to hold it against him if he does, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see, right? Yeah, Budda is the heart and soul of this team for sure, right? Brett saying, I heard the team has his option after next season, so maybe he plays into this. So actually, the deal with his contract. Now, let me bring up his contract because they're just so everyone knows what he has. So he has 2 years left on his contract. None of them are option years as such, but the way things work on the contract is the guaranteed salary is gone. So, the rest of this is like, basically that has to do with I believe the signing bonus, if I'm not mistaken, or no, it's the roster bonus. I think I get that all mixed up, but it has to do with the bonuses. So, if they could cut him. They're not going to, but there's no guaranteed money left. There is some dead cap money, right? So but the dead cap money isn't huge. I mean, it's there, but it's not onerous. But I think, this is the point in the contract where he's going to, he's, I think, the 6th highest paid safety now or something like that. Or maybe it's even lower than that, but he wants an extension. So I don't know. Yeah. But there aren't any options as such on the contract. Doug G, why can't they just restructure to include some more guarantees? If he hasn't earned that, then who has? Yeah, I don't know. And I'm not sure if that's what he wants or if that would be enough. I don't know if he might want an extension. Like, think about it this way too. With players, you only have, you have a limited shelf life, right? You only play so many years. And there's contract, like age 30 is a big deal for NFL players, right? Unless you're quarterback, right? And getting that last big contract before you get to the point where you're on 1-year deals or 2-year deals that are worth less is kind of a big deal. And I think this is going to be Budda's last probably big contract or last chance for a big contract. And I think, if you're a player and you're an agent, you want to try to get that deal while you're, he's 27, so he's still playing at his prime. So I think you want to get that deal negotiated now rather than, wait till you're 29 and, if there's an injury or something, right? And I think that's probably part of the concern too. What if there's a major injury and you want that assurance, right? So there's a lot of other stuff too. It gets kind of complicated, I think, but yeah, so the short answer is they could maybe if that's would work for him. I don't know if that would satisfy him. If the reports are accurate, I think he wants the extension that's going to be, however many years it is, 3 or 4 years, and not just a restructure with guarantee money. But I don't know. Maybe it's hard to know, right? And is the team, that's what the team has sort of reported, but at the same time, that might be not what it is, right? A couple people don't trust the team narratives, and I feel that, right? There's kind of a lot of war of words and stuff going on. So you have to be careful what you believe out there. Agents, whenever you see a tweet from someone, whether it be Adam Schefter or anyone, especially the big name ones, right? Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, the guys that are connected, a lot of times those guys get information either from sources in a team that, is feeding them whatever information, or from an agent. And if that information is coming from one of those sources, typically it's slanted, or it might be slanted in a way. In many cases, there's often an agenda. It's this kind of PR battle, right? It's kind of trying to win hearts and minds and get, the fan base on your side and create leverage. And it's kind of how this stuff goes. So who knows, right? Robert Moore, thanks for being here. Good evening all. If anyone needs a hug, I'm here for you. I hear that, right? We all need hugs, right? Thunder saying, has Budda soured on the Cardinals though? Does Budda want to go to Denver? He loves VJ. So I don't think it was if that's what's happened now, I don't think it was originally about that. I mean, I think he's been showing up to, press conferences in the team facility. I do suspect that there's something he asked for, whether it's an extension or something else something that they kind of didn't give him an answer he liked. And now maybe he's soured. I don't know if it's necessarily about going to Denver. They have a good safety there, so I don't know if that plays the same position. So I don't know if he'd be a fit there or not, or if there'd be. I mean, he's a fit anywhere, I guess, but I don't know if they'd be looking to bring him in. But who knows, right? Yeah, I mean, there's so much we don't know, right? Let's see. Easy money typer. We overpay Kmart Kyler. Well, I don't agree with that. And I mean, with quarterbacks, you have to pay him. That's a whole other conversation. So I still believe in Kyler. But I know we all have different opinions on that. KR Gordon just can't with this franchise right now. Forget the jerseys. Also, hey Joe, thanks for being here, Gordon. Yeah, I mean, like, think of it this way: like, fans have been asking for new jerseys forever, right? They've been asking for new uniforms forever, and like, this is one thing that Michael Bidwell could have got a big W on, right? Get the jersey release, and they're going to do it like it. They're reporting from Kyle Odegaard that it's going to be on the 20th, right? Just under a week from now, they're going to unveil the new jerseys. And like, that could have been a really big win to help everyone kind of feel better. And now at this point, like, if Budda Baker, unless this Budda Baker stuff gets resolved in a way that has Budda Baker happy and as a Cardinal, like, most fans would be like, I don't care about the new jerseys, right? They're going to it's going to be so lukewarm. Like, this is something, the jerseys are something fans have been asking for forever. And Michael Bidwell screwed it up, right? He's failed to secure and keep happy the one player every Cardinals fan, I think, loves, right? This is the one player that I think is not controversial and not polarizing. We all love Budda Baker. And like, all you had to do was keep that one guy happy, and you didn't. And now you're going to, whatever, cred, whatever clout, whatever positive, cachet Michael Bidwell could have gained from doing the new uniforms, he's lost it, right? He's not going to get whatever kind of cachet he was going to get for doing that, right? So like, he's doubly botched it, right? So I've been a Michael Bidwell defender for a long time. I look at other owners around the league, guys like Jim Irsay who just seem unhinged. I'm like, well, Michael Bidwell, yeah, they don't have as much money as some owners, and they don't always do everything right, but at least he's not like that guy, right? And I'm just increasingly becoming soured on him. I know there's a lot of people in the chat and a lot of people watching who you were already there, and I get that. I've been a little bit of an apologist for him for a while, and it's now increasingly, to me, looking like he's kind of a guy who is playing the PR game, trying to spin, doing stuff in terms of the way he runs things that is not optimal. And instead of trying to kind of deal with things and actually address things, he's trying to deflect things and play the spin game. And, he's a former federal prosecutor. He's an attorney, right? And attorneys know how to play the rhetoric game. They know how to spin things. And it's just increasingly, to me, starting to feel like this is what he does, that he puts on the good public face. He knows how to, he's a good orator, right? He knows how to speak well. He's good with words. But he's just trying to do these things he's doing behind the scenes, and then he's trying to spin them, just aren't working. So yeah, it's frustrating, right? So we've got a couple other folks here. Rashad, thanks for being here. Don't let the Cards stress you all out. We aren't even at the start of the season yet. Yeah. I mean, I hear that, and we all have kind of our feelings on this, and I get it. Like, I understand that fans need to be able to vent sometimes. Like, if you think about it, like, sports fandom is an outlet for us, right? It is a place where we sort of exercise these feelings and you know, kind of primal urges to see something exciting. We get emotionally connected to an identity as a fan of a team. You know, we feel like we're part of a community, we're part of an in-group, and like being a fan is it's entertainment, it's sometimes identity. You know, I'm a sociologist, so I'm going to look at it that way. It's all these things, and you know, like I have come to be, you know, in terms of how I view fandom, kind of, I don't know what the term might be. Maybe a fan relativist, a fan agnostic. Really, what the way I look at it is this: like, I believe let people experience their fandom however they want to, as long as as long as what they're doing is not preventing other people from enjoying their fandom, right? So I'm never going to tell someone how to be a fan as long as what they're doing is not being disrespectful or getting in other people's way, right? So if you want to stress out and ride the highs and lows of the team emotionally, that's what being a fan is for you, then I'm not going to tell you don't do that. I tend to keep an even keel. I'm really frustrated about this, you know, Budda Baker thing, but I tend to be even keel. You all know that. You know, I kind of don't go too highs and lows, but you know, I mean, some people are stressed by it, and that's how they experience it, right? Some people aren't. That's how they experience it. So I, you know, I feel that, right? Also, it's just a juicerus, right? Is that what it is? The petition is for Michael Bidwell to sell. That's what it is. So correct me if that's what it is. But yeah, so here's the thing, like, I'll be honest, like, I mean, I'd love it if he sold. And I've never said that before publicly to someone who's going to maybe, you know, invest more or what have you, but I just don't think it's going to happen. You know, I mean, you all know, like, the Bidwells have owned this team for generations. They were, you know, one of the first football teams. It's been in the family forever. And that is just something that's very important to the Bidwell family. And I mean, maybe they'll prove me wrong, but it just doesn't seem like something they're going to ever do, which is really sad and disappointing because we're stuck with this, right? So yeah. But yeah, the Suns look good. D-backs off to a pretty nice start. So there's something there, right? Zhao Didi, thanks for being here. Saying, I say let him walk. 20 million is too much for a safety. Like you said, if in a vacuum, I could say that, but Budda means so much more than that. So for me, to me, you know, he's the heartbeat of this defense, right? So I say you pay him, right? So yeah. MKT Bongo saying, since Budda's on the market, what do you think we can get in return for trading him? And you know, Zhao saying, I would ask for a first and second, right? That's a good question. This is really tough. I haven't even really thought about that. I almost don't want to think about the trade value. I don't think you're getting a first for him. I think you're probably looking at a second or a third, and it's not that he isn't worth more. I think just everyone knows that the situation they're in. I don't think people trade a lot for safety, so I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not worth it. We should keep him, right? Cruz, thank you for your super chat. Cruz Espru, thank you so much. Also channel member. I hope you're enjoying that t-shirt. I hope that got to you. So I am hoping for a solid season, but we have to strongly consider who we take with the first overall pick next year. Team isn't looking good whatsoever. Another sad day in Arizona sports. Yeah. Listen, this is going to be a rough year, right? They're rebuilding. I mean, they have leaned into the full rebuild now, right? The guys who let walk. We'll see what happens with Budda. We see what happens with Hopkins. They didn't sign sort of that bridge veteran quarterback that I thought they would. I thought they were going to look for someone like Jacoby Brissett and maybe try to be a more competitive, but they're clearly going for year one of the rebuild. So this is going to be a tough year. And then like next year, odds are first overall pick, I mean, there's a good likelihood of that, maybe second or third, but I mean, the betting odds are going to be first. I mean, I'm a believer in Kyler, and I'm not anywhere near ready to give up on him yet. I know a lot of fans are. I get that. I see all the comments. Do I think it's out of the question that they would go quarterback, with Caleb next year, being this, supposedly generational quarterback? I don't know. I mean, if things go sideways more, maybe. I mean, there's still the Kyler contract is still tough to move. I think they're more likely to build around Kyler and trade that pick for you think they're going to get a lot for the third overall pick this year. Next year, if they have the first overall pick with that quarterback on the board, you just wait and see what they get for that. We're at least 3 first round picks and probably a couple other picks there too. But so let me use this as a transition, to the one, the optimism. I know, a lot of people want to talk about, a lot of people are frustrated and want to kind of vent that, and I get that, and I feel that, right? I'm more down than him. Let me give, if you are here for the group therapy session and you are looking for optimism or some glimmer of hope, okay, and that if that's why you've come here, because that's why a lot of folks do tune in, is that they want the kind of optimistic take. Here's a glimmer of hope, okay. This team is not better without Budda, right? And I think it's a mistake to not extend him. I think you find a way to extend him and make the money work and build around him on the defensive side. And, that I just, for all the reasons I talked about, I think he is just, he's the kind of player you want. But if they end up trading him, right? This team is going to be in a position for one heck of a effective rebuild if they get the draft right. And that's a big if, right? I get it. Steve Keim did not do that. We haven't seen Monty Ossenfort what he's going to do yet. I am optimistic that his strategy and his approach towards the draft is going to be at least better than Keim, because Keim was really bad, right? He just did not, he didn't do positional value well at all. And, we've talked about this before. Ossenfort comes from the Patriots organization where they do draft well. Everything except wide receivers, it seems like, but on defense and offensive line. And I'm giving Ossenfort the benefit of the doubt that he's going to be a much better drafter than Keim was. And if you watch my interview with Brett Coleman, that's on the channel, he talked about, and I also did a short clip of that where he talked about it. The Cardinals, at least what he's heard, is that they have multiple offers that they're kind of weighing for the third overall pick. And I know there's a lot of folks who want to go Will Anderson. They're not going to sit there, right? But the Cardinals are going to get a good haul of picks for that third overall pick. So imagine they trade back, they get, somewhere between 7 and 12, 7 and 16, right? First round pick this year. Then maybe they get another second or third round pick this year, maybe a future first, maybe a couple, they could literally get 4 or 5 really good picks for that, right? So that's a huge amount of picks to help rebuild this team quickly. And then next year, if they get that first overall pick, they're going to trade that back and they're going to get a first round pick in the top 5 or 10 still trade back, plus a second probably, plus a couple firsts and maybe some future seconds with the quarterback that's going to be in the draft next year. Over the next 2 to 3 years, the Cardinals are going to have like a lot of picks on day 1 and 2. And if Monty Ossenfort is even average at the draft, literally, if he is even average at the draft compared to general managers, with the amount of picks that they're going to have in the day 1 and day 2 over the next 3 years or so, you see what the Jets have done with their roster. If you follow the NFL draft and follow NFL, do you see what the Jets have done with all those first round picks, guys like Sauce Gardner? And I know their quarterback situation sucks, so they need to get that quarterback right. We'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. But if you follow NFL closely, the Jets have built a really good roster in all those other positions with all those picks, right? If they can get a quarterback, they're going to be, a really competitive team, right? So if you have those kind of picks and you're even average, if not better, which we can hope for, right? This roster 2 to 3 years from now, and I know a lot of fans don't want to wait that long, but 2 to 3 years from now, with all those picks, this roster, if they get it right, could be really good, even without Budda Baker, right? So that's the kind of cause, that's the case for hope. I don't think it makes it right I still think they should keep Budda. it doesn't make me feel better about what's going on here. But like, if you're like, oh man, this team is always going to be bad, there's no hope for them to be a winning team. I mean, I get that there's some issues in the building with Michael Bidwell, and that could undermine a lot of that. And, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with that. But, you know, that roster can, within a couple of years, be really good with all those draft picks they're going to be getting. So that's the case for hope. Now, let me give you one other case for hope, so to speak. And that is, there's no guarantee Budda Baker gets traded, right? I mean, think about it. You know, Chandler Jones asked for a trade. Patrick Peterson asked for a trade. They didn't get traded. Now they didn't sign extensions, and that's a problem, right? Well, you could argue it wasn't with the way their play declined. But for Budda Baker, you know, if he plays out his contract and then is like, when his contract is done, it's like, see ya, you know, you had your chance. I'm not extending with you guys. That's a problem. Okay. But there is a chance Budda is still an Arizona Cardinal. You know, there's a chance that they work it out. Okay. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm going to happen, but that is something that could happen. Okay. So if you're looking for a case for hope that's more specific to Budda, it's that until we hear that a trade is consummated, the ship hasn't sailed. So there's the cases for hope. The roster, they can get this roster turned around. It's going to take a couple of seasons, but the draft capital they're going to be having based on, I mean, the draft capital they're going to have is going to be like significant. So that's the case for hope, but I get it. We're all really frustrated. So let me get to some more of the comments. Now that I just kind of that sort of rant, the case for hope for everyone, right? Let's see. So we got, let's see, a couple of Deontay Singleton, Budda's the heartbeat of this defense for sure, right? Let's see. K. Gordon, oh, hey, you watched carefully. I watched Shrunk because it was just painful. The Cardinals, yeah, I feel that, man. Zhao saying, this team has no O-line, no D-line, no quarterbacks. We need to rebuild and can't afford to pay $20 million. I see you can do both. You know, you're going to rebuild through the draft, and the salary cap increases every year. So those contracts become like, you can, it's tougher, but you can, especially with that doing it through the draft. So I think, so, you know, you might have to make some sacrifices elsewhere. So, you know, but again, Budda is worth it, in my opinion. Let's see. Thunder, the real question is, Budda out of the Cards mentality? Does a raise really take care of it? I mean, yeah, or out on the Cards mentality. That's a good, it might be soured, right? And that's a really good point. I mean, that ship may have sailed. He may have burnt the bridge. The Cardinals may have burnt the bridge with him. And that's the fear, right? That it's done, right? He's a proud man, right? Budda Baker is proud, and he deserves to be, right? So we'll see, right? Yeah. So let's see a few other folks that have jumped in here. I want to get to everyone at least once. Cole McFarland, thanks for being here. Sometimes I wish I could stop loving this franchise. I've never seen us in shambles like this. I feel that. Listen, I've been a fan since they moved to Arizona. Like, I'm old enough, right? In 1988. And I feel that, like, there's part of me that wishes I could just jump ship and be a fan of someone else, but I'm not going to do that, right? But my tone towards the organization might change a little. I might be a little more critical than I have in the past, but I feel that. Level 7, thanks for being here. He wants to be the highest paid. Probably that's what the reports are, but I don't know. Fast Freddy, no hotel. No, sorry, man. I mean, I respect your right to think what you want, but dude, the guy he played, what was it, a broken bone? Like, the guy, dude, listen, I don't think it's realistic to expect players to be more loyal than, or players to be more loyal than the team is. You know, I'm not going to hold that against him. He deserves it. So, you know, but I get it. Like, this is how we're coping, right? So maybe that's how you cope with this, is just to kind of write him off. And if that's how you got to cope with it, then, you know, God bless you there, right? Otis, thanks for being Strickland. He's too little for this defense. Just kidding, right? Right. Let's see. Keenan Oken, thanks for being here. Budda's not worth $20 million. We can draft 6. I mean, again, On the field, I mean, the top safeties are making that now. I get why I understand, again, from a roster building perspective, there's an argument for not paying safeties that much, but I get all that. Listen, let me tell you, my favorite thing to follow with like football stuff is roster building strategies, positional value. What positions do you pay? I'm really paying a lot of attention to how you approach the draft. Like, which rounds do you take which positions at, which positions you wait on? Like, that is my jam. Okay. I understand the arguments that you don't, that a safety is like not a premium position compared to other positions and this, that, the other. And I'm just telling you, in my opinion, it's, again, that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. Budda transcends that. Budda is different. And it's not just in terms of like his play is elite, but it's all the other things he brings. You need, if you have a guy like that in your defense, in your locker room, it's worth overpaying for that. So for me, like, listen, if this is a Madden video game simulation, I get it. A safety paying that much, you don't want to do that. Like in a completely calculated, mathematical, analytical kind of vacuum, you can make that argument. But like, this is a game played by real people who are in a room going to battle with other real people. And sometimes there are these other intangibles that are not captured in analytics. And I still believe in analytics, but I'm telling, like, I come from a data and a research background like that. Like that's what I do, like have done like in grad school. And, as a professor, I've done research, right? I understand. I teach research methods. I'm teaching right now. I understand the value of data, but like people who work with data and do research, like who do that for a living, they also understand that you have to take data within a context. And you have to take analytics within a context, and you have to take those kinds, like those rules that the data tell you have to be considered with nuance, right? And I think with a player like Budda, there's context there in terms of what he brings. When your coaches have a guy on the team, right, that they can look at and say, this is the guy you need to do like he does. Are you living up to his example? Like, in a sport played by humans who have psychology, like, human psychology as a part of sports, that's valuable, right? That's valuable beyond the production. So that's why, that's why I feel so strongly about this. And like, listen, I like some of the other players we let go, Byron Murphy, Zach, I like them, and I would have liked to have seen them back, but like, I'm not up in arms about those moves. I'm like, okay, I would have liked to have them back, but I get it. Contract. To me, Budda Baker is just different, right? So, again, we all have the right to have whatever opinion. That's my take on it, right? Let's see if who else is in here. I want to make sure I get everyone at least once. Wolf Dabber 999. You can be the GM and I'll be the coach. Hey, that would be fun, but I just think I would not be a good GM because there's so much more to it than just what we know, but I appreciate that, no doubt. Ben Cork, thank you for being here. Could cash out while the market is hot, right? Okay. Neil Briley, thanks for being here. Will there ever be a day when we can talk some good news? The draft is going to be fun. Some people might not like it. They trade back. Draft's going to be fun, but it does feel like, like how, 0 days without an incident, right? In the Cardinals workplace, right? I mean, this has been a disastrous, like kind of, at least in like offseason in terms of all the off the field stuff. I actually still like the hire of our coach, and I'm giving Monty, I know this is frustrating. I'm going to give him some time, at least I think he can fix the roster. We'll see. But with, the NFL Player Association report card, with the report, the allegations of workplace toxicity, with everything, it's just been a tough year, right, for Cardinals fans. I mean, right now, I think, I just think it's, right now, it's hard to argue that there's a more dysfunctional organization in the league right now. I used to feel like there were others. Right now, I can't, there's no one who I can argue is more dysfunctional, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Ian Keller, thank you for being here. I really wish I didn't care about just one thing after. one thing after can't catch a break. I hear you. NS on Kyle 1, do you think this new staff is tanking for Caleb? I do not think they're tanking for Caleb. I know there are some people who think they are. I mean, again, I could be wrong. I think what they are doing, and I know people use the word tank. I don't like the NFL, like in the NBA, teams tank because they want to get that first overall pick or early pick, lottery pick. And like in the NBA, one star can turn around your franchise because it's, it's a game where if you got a high top end talent matters more there. The NFL is different in terms of the way the roster works. Like, yes, a quarterback like Mahomes is a difference maker, right? Absolutely. But like, it's like much more about building a full roster. And I don't think they're tanking for quote unquote for Caleb. I think they are doing a roster rebuild, and I think they're purging out players, getting rid of players that don't fit what they're going to want to do or who they don't think are going to be a fit. They're bringing in players. They're going to build through the draft instead of aging veterans. So there's going to be some growing pains. You have to, if you want to build through the draft, you have to make room for those draft picks to start and to play. So I think they're just really being really selective on who they keep. If you look at the free agents they signed, they didn't go get any big dollar guys who are going to be big time stars. They got people who are kind of marginal starters and depth pieces so that guys they draft can play. So I don't think it's a tanking for a quarterback. I think it is a rebuild so they can build through the draft and let rookies play, and it's going to be ugly. But that's what you have to do to get those rookies up to speed. So, JP saying, if we get first of all, should we draft Caleb Williams? Like, again, for me, I'm saying no. I know I thought I wrestled with it because I get it. Like, if he's really what everyone says he is, then maybe you do. At this moment, I'm still saying no. I reserve the right to change my mind. But I just think I still believe in Kyler. I think trying to, move him, and I don't know, that's tough, but we'll see. Let's just say, like, I'm more open to that than I was a month or two ago. I'm still not on board with it, but we'll see. Right. And that's this thing no one ever talks me into anything, but I always reevaluate my positions continually, and I take in information. And I change my mind when I've seen when the information gets me to a point where I feel like it makes sense to do that. I'm not there yet, but I'm always like, I know some people get frustrated with my positions and that I don't agree with certain things. That's just my process. My process is I have the things my perspectives. I really try to weigh things carefully to get to those perspectives, and I reevaluate them. And if I feel like my position should change, it does change. But I don't change my position because someone else tries to talk me into it. I change it, like with the Michael Bidwell thing, right? I was an apologist. My perspective has shifted, not because something anyone said, but just because taking in all the evidence. So with Kyler, I still believe in the talent. And I think, I still think they're going to build around him. But I'm going to take in information, and if something changes, change it. Jose, thank you for this very kind comment. You're always open-minded. I appreciate that, Joe. Thank you. I try to be, but I get at the same. I'm open-minded, but I'm not easily persuaded by you know what I'm saying. So, like, if don't ever try to debate me into something, it just won't work. I'm stubborn like that. But I also always reevaluate my own positions. That's that's how I approach it. Cruz with another super chat. Thank you so much. The fans are angry. Quick post a video of me flying a plane. Michael Bidwell probably. Is there a video of him flying a plane? I know they did the video of the helicopter with, I think, DJ Humphreys going out to the briefcase, kind of, for the jersey reveal, right? So yeah. Interesting. So yeah, thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I'll tell you though, like that's what they try to do. They, when things are going bad, they try to give something, right? And yeah. All right. Evan, Joe, I'm about to jump off a cliff. What are we doing? Michael Bidwell, right? That's what Evan, I feel you, man. I think this is a misstep. I think it's a mistake. You know me. You know I'm kind of really measured. But I think I agree. Pay the man, right? And yeah, Tanner, thank you for being here. Buddha's personality would takes him to this level. Pay that man. So I think this is a mistake. Not paying him and not keeping him happy. So we're making a mistake. Is what we're doing, right? I think. And I wish I knew who was behind this, if this was all Monty, all Michael, or both. I mean, Michael Bidwell has to sign off on anything. So I think he's at least partially culpable for this, right? So, let's get to some of the other comments here. Keenan saying, we let Murphy walk for $8 million, but you want to pay Baker $20 million. Yes, I do. Murphy's a good player. He's a nice player. Baker is different, and it's the heartbeat. So yes, I do. Let's see. Ben saying, I was totally down and on board with the big rebuild, but losing Budda is putting a damper. I feel that. I'm okay with the rebuild too, right? It's just, but the Budda thing, right? You lost me. That's a bridge too far, right? 100%. Daniel Cora, thank you for being here. We have to find a way to keep Budda. He's the heart and soul of our defense. Besides, this team is going to be bad enough without trading him. But I will but I will bet my last star off support trades him. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I agree. We need to keep him. I mean, we should. So I'm with you there, right? John Wicks Dog, thanks for being here. Time to jump ship. I've seen a lot of fans on Twitter saying that, they're done. If this happens, they're done. Right. And I'll say this, I know there's a lot of people I've seen people who say that if this happens, I'm going to leave. And I saw people kind of go at them and call them fair weather fans or whatever, or bandwagon fans or whatever. And, I talked about this earlier. I'm a believer, let people be fans how they want to be. If they're not getting in the way of you being a fan. And listen, I'm not jumping ship, but I'm not going to look down on someone who does. I mean, I'll be disappointed that, sad to see you go, but I don't know. You do you in terms of your fandom. So they're going to be fans who are going to just give up on the Cardinals after this. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to hold it against anyone. I'll just say that. And I get it. This is a dysfunctional team to follow. So I hear that. NS and Kyle saying, I want to be hopeful, but after watching horrendous draft after the last half decade, kind of just want to take an elite defensive prospect. Pray we have Nick Bosa. Here's the thing though. It's like, that was a different GM. So I'm just, you can't, in my opinion, you can't hold those drafts, and you can't expect, I mean, it's a whole different front office, or at least a general manager. So the process is going to be different. So I don't see that. Yes, Will Anderson's going to be elite, but you're going to have to, if that's what you want to do, cool. I'm just telling you, it's not, they're trading. Everyone who's in the league and follow, I had Brett Coleman, talking to him, and he's like, yeah, dude, they're 98% they're trading. Right. So make your peace with that. And for me, okay, maybe he's elite, but I still if you can get 5 or 6 picks out of that pick in the first couple of days of the draft or the next couple of years, which is possible, all those, you could get multiple good starters, even if you don't hit on all of them. So from a roster building perspective, I think it makes sense to trade back. Everyone I've talked to knows what they're talking about. Eric Eager said the same thing. So, yeah. Let's see who else is in here. No F's given. Thanks for being here. The Cardinals need to overpay Budda. He's our heart and soul. I agree, right? Robert G, thanks for being here. Budda plays well in the slot, even though we didn't see that under Vince. Yeah, he plays well everywhere, right? He's gotten better in the league, right? So, yeah. Yeah, Jose said, if this was Madden, Budda has the Hitman Enforcer Game Changer emblem all over his head, right? That's right. If you play Madden, all those traits, right? The Carolina Crown, thanks for being here. We're going to go from being the retirement home for players to being the team that develops players and let them go to other teams to make money and chase rings. SF. Man, I mean, listen, that it feels like that right now. I'm hopeful I'm for players like Zach Allen and Byron Murphy. I would have liked to see him stay, but I understand why the new coaching staff isn't necessarily why they want to bring in their own guys. They want to do a full reset like that. So I'm gonna I totally agree that we being that retirement home thing was kind of problematic, right? In terms of being the team that signed, we failed in the draft, and when you don't do well in the draft, then you have to overpay or you have to pay aging veterans, to come play for you. And right now it feels like some of the guys that we drafted that panned out, right? Byron Murphy and Zach Allen, and now if Budda Baker, right, ends up getting traded, are going elsewhere, and Christian Kirk, right? But this is a new start in terms of the roster lease. So we have to see what happens 3-4 years from now after this draft class. So I'm not going to go so far as to say that we're going to be the team that develops players, lets them go. I hope we don't. We might end up being that. But right now, this new coaching staff, with the exception of Budda Baker, because I think that was just a mistake not to keep him happy, I understand why they want to let guys from the past regime go and start fresh with a bunch of new draft picks, and they're going to have a lot of them. But if those guys they draft this year, if they don't sign those guys to extensions when they pan out, then I'm going to be yeah, what you're saying would be the case there. So yeah, it's frustrating. Gary, thanks for being here. As much as I love Budda Baker, there's no way he should be the highest paid safety as safeties go. He's not ranked top 10. I disagree. And, respectfully, I think he's one of the top ones. I talked about this earlier. His grades are a little misleading because of all the responsibilities he does, and some of it doesn't show up. I think he's better than top 10. I think he's top 5. And I think and for all of the reasons we're talking about, it's worth it. But, again, we all have right to our own opinion. Brett Jones, appreciate you, Joe. I'm in data analytics. Folks want the data, but don't like the context. So no easy button there. Yeah, thank you. So you get that. You work in that field that data is a starting point, and then you have to explain it. Anyone who publishes research, you don't just publish the data. You put the data in, and then you explain what it means and you add the context, right? And so yeah, you get that, right? Class and ask, thanks for being here. Budda is worth a first round pick. I think it's worth it. I just don't know if we'll get it, right? So yeah, so we'll see, right? See who else is in here. I want to make sure I get everyone at least once before we get out of here. Let's see. Romboy Bubble, thanks for being here. Been out of the house with family, but I'm here for my therapy now. Welcome. Michael, thanks for being here. If Budda gets traded, will the Cards trade down and draft Byron Branch, safety from Bama? That's an interesting question. I haven't been wanting to think about that, but they're trading back, all but sure. I think it's 99.9% likelihood they're trading back. And it is interesting. I love Brian Branch as a prospect. And if Budda's gone, he's like a safety slot. He'd be a nice fit. I don't know if they will do that. I think there's other positions they might look at as well. There's another guy that, the guy that they met with who's a day 2 prospect, second, third round, maybe, is Jamie Robinson, safety. I think was it Florida State, or I believe. Anyway, that's a guy that they met with, and they might end up taking him. So, and then, do they move Isaiah Simmons, to safety? That's what he played college. So there's a lot of questions. Branch could be a really nice fit if they end up trading. I hope they don't trade him, Budda, obviously, but I love Branch, so I could see that. I just don't know if they're going to go safety in the first round, but who knows? Robert G, do people not realize Budda's best safety in the league? To me, he's up there, but yeah. Rafa 30, Monty said since day one, no egos and team first mentality. OC wanted to move from the kind mentality, playing inside linebackers and safeties rather than DT and quarterback. I Budda's safety, and I get it. Yeah, but here's the problem with that to me is in the same press conference in which he said that, he also said that Budda Baker is the kind of player they want, that he represents everything they want. So when he's talking about this, to me, that's a bad look. And I don't know. I understand, I totally understand, and I like to talk about the roster building thing. Yes. Inside linebackers are not a premium position. Defensive tackles are, right? Cornerbacks are, receivers are, quarterbacks are, tackles are. There are positions you pay and positions that typically you don't. And safety is not typically one of those positions. And I completely understand that. I still think with Budda, you make an exception because of what he means to this defense. So, you know, I understand though the roster building thing. I understand that like all of that. That's like I said, that's the thing I nerd out on more than anything else, right? I that's the stuff I really get into, and yet I still think with Budda you make an exception, right? Let's see, a couple other. Let's see, Coley Jack, thanks for being here. Trade Budda to the worst team. Oh wait, we are, yeah, right, we are, right, yeah. So Evan saying, oh, okay, so Joe, that makes Patrick P, Tyrann, and now Budda for defensive backs that don't get paid and demand a trade. Do the Cardinals not value defensive backs? That's a good question. So this is tricky because at the same time they actually paid Tyrann. They paid Budda, they paid Jalen Thompson. They have actually paid them, but now they're not wanting to extend Budda, right? It sounds like. Now Tyrann Matthew, there was an injury, so that was a little weird. But I will say this though, like, look, at least under Vance Joseph's defense and Cliff Kingsbury, it definitely seemed like they did not prioritize cornerback. I mean, they didn't, you know. The year we thought they really needed to take one in the first round, they take Xavier Collins, and they don't get a cornerback till the fourth round with Marco Wilson. He's turned out to be a nice player. So it does seem like they haven't prioritized defensive backs. There is an argument for not paying elite money to elite defensive backs in terms of the weak link, kind of the idea that you're better off having like 4 or 5 solid but not elite cornerbacks in your cornerback room versus one star and a bunch of scrubs. So, you know, like I totally get an argument for not going super high dollar, but again, like with Budda, I mean, I'm throwing that out the window. That's just me, right? So yeah, but there does seem to be, if nothing else, there does seem to be some history with defensive backs, right? Let's see. Brian, thank you for being here, Brian. Appreciate you as a regular member of the Discord. Why stay loyal to the team when Budda, most loyal player on the team, can't even stay loyal anymore? You know, I mean, Budda, I put this on the organization, but you know, I think he wanted to be loyal, but you know, I think there's a lot of smoke, and I think there's some fire there in terms of the organization, right? So, you know, I get a lot of fans feel that way, right? Gus, thanks for being here. I'm totally confused with all this. No playbooks yet, letting so many good players go. The Cardinals have never had the ability to build through the draft. I hope we feel much differently 2 to 3 years. Yeah, like the no playbooks thing, you know, I know Jonathan Gannon, people have asked for he met a couple of players asked for a playbook. He's like, not yet. And, you know, I think they're kind of putting their playbook together still. You know, new coaching staff coming on. First time defensive coordinator, first time offensive coordinators. I get that they need time to do that. And then you've got the draft going on, but I also, like I said earlier, like letting some of those players walk. I would have liked to kept them, but I get it. But the Budda thing, you know, and they haven't built through the draft. That's been a problem. And that's one of the things I hope changes. I still think it could, but we got to see it, right? For sure. Let's see. Who else? Make sure. Eddie Ramirez, thank you for being here. Finally, through the advertisement, Budda Baker tried to keep the team together and keep the team at a high rate, but with the staff disorganized for 2 years doesn't cut it. I mean, listen, Budda did his job and then some, right? So yeah. Kevin, thanks for being here from the Reset Musical. How much longer does a safety like Budda have in his football career? That's a good question. You know, I mean, I think a player like Budda, he can play into his 30s. You know, maybe there's a little bit of a difference in terms of a little bit of a drop off with safeties. In fact, I'm going to look at PFF real quick and look at the top graded safeties and see how, like, in fact, let's look at this, like in terms of age, right? Can we, does it? Okay, here we go. I'm going to share a screen. And we're gonna look together at like the top rated safeties real quick. All right. So looking at here, let me make this a little bit bigger. Here's the top safeties. right? You got 22, 24, 26. You got a 30-year-old Tyrann Mathieu, 31, Jimmy Ward, almost 32, Rodney McLeod, 33, almost 30-year-old Kevin Byard. You got some guys in their 20s. I mean, 31, Adrian Phillips. Obviously, Budda Baker there, 27, 32, Duran Harmon. I mean, it does seem like safety. You got a few. Devin McCourty played really long. Tayshaun Gibson, right? Then we're kind of getting down 34. Harrison Smith, 32. Logan Ryan. So, and then, so like you do have a handful of safeties that played well into their 30s. I think if you use just kind of eyeballing that, I would say that I think Budda Baker probably could be productive, play at a high level until 32, 33. Maybe from there it's a little bit trailing off. So like he could get one more good contract out of him, I think. So yeah, that's a good question, right? So I mean, like he's going to be 29 at the end of his contract, so he's wanting an extension. I'm guessing probably 3 years, pressing for 4 years. That would take him to 32 or 33, and I think he could still be productive through that. So yeah. Agent 47, thank you for being here. I got the news, man. Budda's the heart of this team. I hope we can fix this, but not overpaid. Get two first, like the Jets. Guy with Adams would be good too. I mean, if you got to trade, it'd be nice if you get that. I don't know if you will, but here, we'll see, right? Let's see if there's anyone else. I want to make sure I hit every person with one comment at least. I think I've got everyone. All right. So this is frustrating, right? And I think it's a mistake to not keep Budda happy. I totally understand the arguments about age. I understand the arguments about positional value. I understand arguments about salary cap. And I think when you have a player, though, that means what he means and is the example he is, I think you make an exception. You quote unquote overpay if you have to. I think that shows, like, with other players in the team, if they see you're not taking care of this guy that they respect, like that, there might be a younger player who they want to re-sign who sees what they did with Budda and is like, maybe I go elsewhere. Like it has ripple effects, right? The way you treat players, especially respected players like Budda, that impacts other players. See that, right? And so I don't know, but I know we're all frustrated. So here again, therapy session. Here's the cause for the case for hope. There's still a chance it gets worked out. It's not a foregone conclusion he's going to trade, right? We'll see, but there's still a chance it works out. And then again, even if it doesn't work out and as dysfunctional as this is, with the kind of draft capital they're going to have, if Monty Ossenfort is even an average drafter or better, then they are going to have a lot. They're going to be able to build a good roster in a couple of years. It's going to take a couple of years, but they're going to have a lot of draft capital from the trade back this year. If they have that first overall pick and they trade it back, they're going to get a ton of picks for that. And they're going to have a lot of draft capital to work with, and they're going to be able to build a good roster. Even if it's without Budda, right? I want it to be, but I get it, right? So, here we go, right? So, all right, well, listen, we've got an hour. I know it's frustrating. I am with you. I'm usually very optimistic. I'm very critical of what's going on here. I'm not happy about it either. I'm not jumping ship. I hope you don't either, but I understand. So we're going to get out here. Y'all be well. Drafts coming up in a couple weeks. That's something to look forward to. Comfort yourself with that. And we'll all get through this together. So in the meantime, thanks for being here. I'm going to put up the shout outs for my channel members. Thank you all for your support. Hang in there.